did we watch Autumn last time? Or did we watch?
It was a boy. Oh, okay. So you want the piece?
So let me turn this on. We will watch. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to go, you hopefully have looked at the rubric and familiarized yourself with that. We watched one competitor last time. We will watch Autumn this time, and I will grade it along with you. So if you'll fill it out, which you think it should be, and then I will give you copies of the way I scored it and sort of my notes so you can see what I saw and what I'm looking for, and compare it with yours to give you an idea of where you need to be at sort of the end of class. I do this early in the semester so that you can start preparing for your final presentation. Again, in the advanced class, we tell people what they're going to sell. Usually it's ADP. I think this year it's going to be Gartner because that's what's sold at NCSC. And that's the class that gets them ready to go, or we make selections on who's going to go to nationals or the International Collegiate Sales Competition. So we choose what they're going to sell in that class. In this class, you get to choose your product. I will tell you that I've had a wide variety of products. Now, sold. What you want to think about is selling a product that you can get all of the points on the rubric. Obviously, in a sales situation, it's going to be more fluid and more dynamic than what we're giving you here. This is to get you familiar with sort of the steps and the process of actually making the presentation and making the sale. But obviously, when you get out in the real world, this is as close to the real world as we can get it. But if it's not, if I don't see it in your presentation, I can't give you the points on the rubric, and it's a significant portion of your grade. Again, you can sell whatever you want to your partner, and your partner can sell. You don't have to sell the same things. You can each sell something different. I've had people sell stuff from companies that they work for, and that's generally pretty good because you really know the product. The most interesting thing I've had is I had a girl sell Scott Savlik prosthetics. So she actually brought in prosthetic arms and legs. He's the guy who does for people who are missing limbs down on Broadway Extension. She worked for him, and that was interesting. Probably the most interesting of all was I had a Japanese student. The Japanese are fascinated by toilets, and he sold a high-end toilet, you know, the kind that has a heated seat and washes you off and all this other. I mean, it was really kind of an interesting sale. The least sophisticated product I had somebody sell, and they actually made it all the way through the rubric, was another Japanese student, and she loves Snickers bars, and so she sold, her thing was, her prospect was supposed to be a convenience store owner, that she was trying to sell more cases of Snickers bars. And she made it, you know, you wouldn't think with a Snickers bar, how much is there to sell with a Snickers bar? It's, you know, caramel, peanuts, and chocolate. She did make it through. So sort of think about that, what you're going to sell. If you want to try and sell ADP or something like that, we can maybe get you a trial run at the app. The nice thing about selling ADP or something like that, or an iPhone, I've had lots of people who have worked for Verizon or T-Mobile or something like that that have sold phones, different types of phones. The nice thing about doing that is that when you get to the presentation part, you can involve the person in the presentation. You can, you know, get them to touch it, feel it, see it, and that's a benefit. So we'll watch Autumn, who won second place at the American Marketing Association conference a year ago in New Orleans.
Ready? Hello? Hey. Sorry about that. Acker with ADP. How are you? Do you mind if I take a seat?
No, go ahead.
Awesome, thank you.
My name's Aaron. I think you were supposed to be meeting with Tom.
Yes, I was.
Tommy boy called in, he was a little under the weather. Again.
Oh no, that's okay. I'm happy to meet with you as well. We can go ahead and make this work. So, just looking over your company, I was actually doing some research before I walked in, and when I saw Tom's profile, miraculously enough, I actually kind of stumbled upon yours as well, and I saw that you spoke at a LinkedIn conference last week. How did that go?
But great, yeah. This is my firm, so the conference went great, and I kind of Tom called me because he's sick. He asked me to jump in here for him. I have a lot of say in what happens, or at least the end, final decision. So I thought it'd be good for me to step in here. We're looking at something like this anyway, so.
Of course, I'm glad that you're really hands-on with your company, and it looks like I'm speaking to the right person, so I'm really ecstatic that you could be here. Sorry that Tom's under the weather, but happy to be speaking with you as well. So one of the things that I also had a question on is, when you spoke at your conference, I know that you got to speak about, just kind of how you started your firm and your success with it, and I actually have a cousin back in Louisiana, and he's wanting to open up his own law firm, and you've been so successful. Do you have any advice I can pass down to him?
I got tired of working for somebody else and kind of want to make my own decisions. So that's kind of why I started. Big believer in work-life balance, so I kind of can instill that with our company. So I feel like I've missed a lot of my kids' sports games and stuff with being away from home. So it was a good time to do it, but we're small.
Yeah.
We're not one of these big law firms, but I like it. I don't want to go too much anyway, so.
Yeah, well, that's good.
To keep it small. Yeah.
Well, I'll definitely have to pass down advice, and it's really good. And I know I was supposed to meet with Tom, but I'm happy to be with you today. And I just want to formally introduce myself. I'm Acker with ADP, and that's my business card. That way we have a clear line of communication. And do you have one for me in return?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you so much. And when I originally set up this meeting with Tom, he mentioned he had about 20 minutes for this. Does that still work for you today?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that'll work.
Sounds great. So one of the things that I just wanted to kind of go over with you today is kind of learn a little bit more about your company and kind of look at your current payroll system and see what you guys are currently doing and if you guys have any challenges. And if you do have any challenges, ADP can provide a solution to you and help you run more effectively and efficiently. Would you be able to discuss further details with me?
Sure.
Okay, awesome. And first and foremost, my number one goal is to welcome you to the ADP family. But before we continue, I know that Tom is involved in payroll, but you are the owner of the company. Does anyone else need to weigh in on this decision?
No, it's just us. He's kind of my overall admin person, so he does HR stuff, he does marketing, payroll, so anything like that, he handles all that stuff and will come to me.
Okay, so you can formally make the decision.
Yep.
And before we continue, do you care if I take any notes today?
No, go ahead.
Okay, awesome. So I know you guys have a current payroll system in place. Why don't you walk me through that payroll process from punch to paycheck?
Manual.
Okay.
It's manual, and I don't know a lot about it other than the fact that it's manual and it's like really very involved, 45 steps or something something about a 45. It's pretty involved. He spends about 3 hours every period, pay period, doing the payroll. So it's paid bi-weekly. So it's like 26 pay periods, and you spend 3 hours each pay period, 6 hours a month, which is time consuming, I feel, for 6 people. We have 6 people in our office.
6 people, okay.
And what else? We found some minor mistakes. So in taxes and stuff, and I think I know just enough to be dangerous about the compliance issues, and that if we don't follow one of the compliance issues, we can get fined. So we have an outside accountant that kind of handles that stuff that we meet with once a quarter.
How much do you currently pay that accountant? If you don't mind asking?
$1,500 a quarter. So $6K a year. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's a lot for a small firm. So we're always keeping our eyes on our budget.
Yeah. Cash flow is always important.
Yeah. So that's pretty much the gist of it.
Okay.
The reason why he does it, I think he's to be blunt, he's not the brightest bulb out there. And he's technology challenged.
Okay.
So I think that's why he's still hanging out to the old pen and paper.
Pen and paper, okay.
Yeah.
So one of the few things that I just wanted to kind of learn a little bit more about, I noticed that you mentioned that, time, especially being a small business, every minute is valuable.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that Tom spends about 3 hours per payroll period processing that. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, and with the, small business, you mentioned that he did several different jobs within that, whether that be the marketing side and HR and everything like that. So if he could do something else, and spend those 3 hours every 2 weeks on payroll and kind of give that back to other areas of your business,
Yeah.
would that be a benefit to you?
Absolutely, because
Okay.
I have to pick up the slack where he is, and it takes me away from my family.
Okay. And then another area that I know that you kind of talked about was kind of the mispunches and miscalculations,
Yeah.
is that correct? So kind of tell us a
Well,
little
with
bit more about
anything
that.
manually, you're gonna have, there's a chance for human error, which is always there, no
Yeah.
matter how bright you are.
So-
So obviously, that's why we kind of brought you in, or he's bringing you in, maybe, have that peace of mind where that won't happen.
When you have those mispunches and miscalculations, how does that affect your employees?
Well, they know it's not
Mhm.
malicious, and we're a family-run
Yeah.
business, so they know, that it was never be done on purpose, but you still want the peace of mind that you're gonna get paid in 2 weeks.
Of course.
And there's not gonna be a mistake in your paycheck or in your time or whatever it is. So-
Yeah. And I
So you
know.
want the trust there,
Mhm.
yeah.
And if Tom spends 3 hours every payroll period, just doing the regular payroll process, that doesn't include the time that he has to go back and recalculate those checks if they're wrong or
That's
anything like
correct.
that, correct? Okay.
That's correct.
So if you don't find a solution for that in the long term, those mispunches, miscalculations, how could that affect your business growth?
Yeah, wasted time.
Okay.
Absolutely wasted time.
And one other aspect that I kind of want to dig a little bit deeper on is you mentioned a little problem about tax and compliance. How do you currently handle that aspect of your business? Do
And outside.
the accountant does everything for you?
Yeah, he takes care of that, because, I don't think Tom knows enough about the compliance issues.
Okay.
So we make sure that outside accountant takes care of it. Yeah, Tom is an accountant,
Okay. Oh, Tom's an accountant too?
yeah, so you would think you would know it, but,
So what part, does he do any of the accounting, or is it just all the outside accounting?
he should, but he's my wife's brother, so I gotta be careful what I say.
Yeah, and he does so many other things in the business, it's, he probably has a lot on his plate, so.
Yeah.
And he currently pays $6,000 or $1,500 per quarter
to
for that accountant, okay?
This other accountant.
That's a lot of money that you guys are spending on the tax and compliance and,
Yeah.
the accounting portion of your business. Is there anything else of value that you could be doing with that money?
Not getting somebody that expensive to handle it.
So if I could provide you with a platform to handle that tax and compliance aspect of your business, minimize that risk, while also saving you money, would that be a benefit to you?
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, sure would.
So what I'm hearing from you so far is that you guys have a little problem with the time that it takes to currently process payroll. You guys have maybe a challenge when it comes to the tax and compliance. You mentioned that if anything is filed incorrectly, you don't want to incur any of those costs that come along with that. You guys are spending a lot of money on your current accountant.
Right.
And you want to develop this into some sort of system that can give you that time back, that can give you that money that you can kind of spend that in other arenas of your business and develop them so they can flourish. And really just give you that flexibility and that overview of your company that I know can be really important to a business owner. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, yeah.
So what I want to do with you today, Aaron, is just show you a platform that can do all those things for you.
Okay.
It's going to minimize those risks.
Yeah.
It's going to show you all your tax reports in live in real time. And I'll go ahead and show you just what I mean by that today. Do you mind if I go ahead and show you our ADP Run mobile app?
No, you're fine.
So this is our ADP Run mobile app. And just at first glance, what do you think of the system?
I don't know, the first time I've seen it, looks like a golf course down here.
It looks like a golf course.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's green and vibrant.
Golf app, yeah.
So one of the things that, it does look like a golf course, but one of the ways that I like to describe our system is simple. And I'll show you just what I mean by that today. So
Sure.
go ahead and click on current payroll process right up at the top. And we're going to go to the home page. Let's see. Let's go back to the very beginning. So this is gonna be your very first page whenever you go in to log into the app.
Okay.
And you said you pay your employees bi-weekly, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So right here is the check date, and you can customize this however you like. If you wanna pay your employees bi-weekly, you can go ahead and do that. Or if you'd like to do it once a month, you can customize that all right here.
Okay.
So go ahead and click on Resume Payroll down at the bottom. And this is going to show you an overview of all of your employees. So are your employees, I know with a law firm it's kind of different, you guys have billing hours, is that correct?
Yeah, we bill our clients, that's how we're paid, yeah.
Okay, do you guys have any people that are just straight hourly, or is it
Yeah,
mainly
there's
all
two
salary?
hourly, two the admin time, and then we have another admin type person that's an hourly too, so there's 4 salaries, 2 hourly.
Okay, so the beautiful thing about this app is you can actually sort it down at the top, and you can do it just by administration, you can do it by sales, you can do it by salary, hourly, you can
Great.
do everything like that. So
And how's this information get put into?
that's actually a great question. So one of the things that we like to do is we like to give every employee at your law firm a unique username and login. So you can actually use this on any platform as long as you have internet access. So you
Okay.
can use it on your desktop, you can use it on your work computer, or you can use it on your phone.
Okay.
So if any of your lawyers are ever in court or on the road, they'll have that flexibility to clock in their hours while they're gone and kind of give them that convenience factor back. Does that
Yeah.
seem like it would be a benefit to you as well?
And they input all their information in there, or is that something you guys take care of?
So what they do is they can actually, for your hourly employees, they can actually clock in and clock out
Okay.
via our platform. And then
But
on
the original, like, all the information about each employee, is that, like, the name, is that done by you guys, we give you that information, you
So-
guys put it in?
when we currently install this system, we'll
Yeah.
actually transfer all that information over to this platform.
Got it.
Whenever you hire someone on, all you have to do is go in and log in a new employee,
Sure.
put in their information, and it'll save all that data. Does that help
Got it.
alleviate some of that concern as well?
Yeah, yep,
So
yep.
go ahead and click on Key right down here, Sandra.
What do we do? This one?
Mhm. So you can click on it, and if you want to say your billing hours are $250 per billing hour, you can go ahead and input that there, and whenever they clock in and out, it'll just input the time right down there.
Okay.
So Tom won't have to add up all those times. It'll take that manual part out. It's a seamless integration into our app, so you're not gonna have any of those mispunches and miscalculations
Okay.
that you guys have been having before. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Okay, so go ahead and hit preview down at the bottom, hit calculate. And one of the things that you mentioned to me before was the tax and compliance. So go ahead and click that report screen down at the bottom. So this is gonna show you your tax overview in live in real time.
Okay.
One of the beautiful things about ADP is we actually handle this portion of your business for you. We will actually cut 1099 W-2s at the end of the year. We actually handle all the tax filing, and if for any reason it's not filed on time, we actually incur the penalty for you.
Okay.
So you won't have to worry about paying any fees. You won't have to pay that accountant to handle that
So
part
you
of your
guys
business
handle
anymore.
all that stuff,
Mhm.
great, great.
So you could be saving $6,000 a year on that aspect of your business alone. How does that sound?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and go back and hit approve down at the bottom. Hit approve payroll. And that's done. So what that did is you approve payroll, and that's what it's gonna show you that you need to have in your bank account for that current payroll process. And it's done for you, so.
So then it goes to their deposit.
Yep, so what do you think about the time that it took to go through that process?
Yeah, it's better than 3 hours that he's spending.
Of course, yeah.
That was 2 minutes.
Would you agree that that would kind of save you some of that time and money that we talked about earlier?
Yeah, definitely.
So I'd really like to get into the pricing with you if you don't have any more questions about the app or how it runs.
No, I do have one question.
Okay.
What about like the employee's information where does it go? I mean, I'm always concerned about, because we've been manual so long,
Mhm.
it's kind of kept in-house, it hasn't gone anywhere, it gets out there into the earth, somewhere out there in the stratosphere. People can grab identity theft and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, what happens there?
Yeah, so security is a concern.
Yeah, security.
Some past
So what
employees
else?
of mine,
Well,
yeah, no, that's a great question to ask. So some of my past employees have had that same concern, so I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah,
Do you currently have a bank account?
I do.
Okay, do you trust your bank account with your information and everything like that?
Yes.
So one of the great
Well, I
things.
have to. Do I trust them? I don't know. But I
Has it ever been hacked? Have you ever had any problems with that?
No.
So
Probably not.
ADP actually uses a 128 gigabyte system, and so it's the same encryption that the national banking system uses. National
Okay.
banking system has ever been hacked, and just to kind of get into the nitty gritty part of the 128-bit encryption, it actually would take years and years and years to even penetrate that kind of system and to
Okay.
get that.
So it's not like that target hacking.
No, it's not going to be like Target or anything like that. Our system is much stronger, and we take your security very important. And so we try to protect our clients the best that we can. Does that help? That security issue?
Yeah,
No, you're fine.
That's definitely what that piece of mind, so yeah.
Of course. And you currently mentioned that you have 6 employees. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. So you would currently fall under the 6 to 10 employee bracket. So that's $28.95 per payroll period. So what that's going to cover is that's going to uncover all the payroll process for that. It's going to cover that tax and compliance.
Yeah.
You're going to be saving that time, about 2/3 of that, and you're also getting that tax money from that accountant that you're spending back to your business. So in order to kind of reap all of the benefits that we talked about today, whether that be the time, the compliance, and giving that money back to other arenas of your business.
So this is right here. What's the difference between these two? What is this?
So the HR, we like to sell those to employees that have a lot more employees, and it's kind of like an onboarding process.
Okay.
And so once we kind of set you up for the general tax
Start with
compliance.
this and then we can talk about that.
Yeah. So once we get this up and running, I would
She
love
does
to.
handle the HR stuff, but again, it's not a lot of work. The HR stuff's not too hectic, because it's
Yeah.
6 people.
So whenever you come in, we'll actually implement all of your current employee systems into the ADP system.
Okay.
Whenever you guys want to onboard a new client, if you'd love to come talk to me about HR, I can tell you how to simplify your onboarding process and everything like that. How's that sound?
Yeah, that's good.
So in order for you to, reap the benefits of what I've shown you today, I think we need to get this really implemented and started before your next payroll process. How does next Tuesday sound?
I kind of need to talk to Tom.
Okay.
Because he's sick, and he handles everything. I mean, of course, I can make the decision, but I'd like to run it by him.
Okay.
He obviously had interest, because he asked you guys to come in. Again, I can make the decision, but out of common courtesy, I wanted to see, just touch base with him.
Of course, and that's completely understandable. Aaron, one thing that I asked you at the very beginning of the meeting was, if I was to provide a solution to some of the challenges that you guys have been facing, that you would feel comfortable making a decision today. Is there any reason why you don't feel comfortable doing that right now?
Just out of courtesy to Tom. That's basically it, because what you showed me is, how about this? You've got a verbal from me, and then maybe we can meet, or you can meet with Tom. It's just unfortunate he's not here, because it probably could happen.
Okay.
But I just want to him to kind of bless it a little bit at his side. Like I said, you got a verbal from me, but maybe you can just touch base with him. I'll see him this weekend. He's coming over, so I can talk to him. But then maybe you guys can meet next week and just as a formality.
Okay.
Is that all right?
How does this sound? So when we actually come and implement this new payroll system, we'll actually walk Tom through your first payroll period. So we'll show him hands-on how to do everything. We'll walk him through the process and from start to finish. Show him how to do everything and kind of show him how it works and everything like that. How does that sound?
Yeah, that'll work.
So can we stop by next Tuesday and we'll get this up and running before Friday, before your next payroll period? We'll show them how to do everything. Okay, perfect. Well, I'll go ahead and we'll just have you sign at the bottom of this piece of paper, and we'll be by next Tuesday.
You got it.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Aaron.
All right. You sold me.
I didn't sell you.
First one.
Oh, really?
Well, the others didn't get to it. I probably shouldn't talk about others. I don't know if I'm supposed to.
No, you're fine. Sorry, I'm going to pause my time that way. It doesn't go well.
Close?
About a minute.
What'd you all think of Autumn's presentation? She's an excellent salesperson, and she has gone on to be really successful, one of our most successful recent graduates. So she is really, really good. She won second place at AMA last year. Like I said, she should have won first, because the person that they allowed to win first was actually a graduate student. And I didn't think that was fair to have a graduate student competing against undergrads, but they said they didn't have a specific rule. All the other competitions have specific rules that you have to be an undergraduate student. So I really thought she should have won, because it's primarily geared towards undergraduate students, and she did a really, really good job. So I thought that was a really solid presentation. ADP is, again, what we use. It's a product that's easy. So as you're thinking about your own products, easy to use and the demonstration, if you look at the rubric, the part on effectively involves the buyer in a demonstration. That's really, it's just one line on the rubric, but that's an enormously important part, particularly in business-to-business sales, and she did a really good job on getting him to use the app and see the benefits that it's going to bring to the company, and I think that's one of the things to focus on. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make copies of my notes for you guys to look at so that you can see sort of where and what I wrote down and what I'm looking at. If you have questions about that, we'll be able to talk about that, so I'm gonna stop the video here for a minute. For the second part of class today, what we're gonna do is I want you to focus on the critical thinking challenge. I told you what we would do is we would move into talking about ethics. My substitute, Dr. Morelli, will be here on Thursday because I will be out of town, and he will talk about chapter 2, and then we'll come back and finish talking about ethics on Tuesday again. I realize that's a little disjointed because of my sort of travel that I don't have any control over at this point. And so I apologize for that, but again, it's in the syllabus that this is sort of subject to modification. So I'm going to ask you to get in your groups and consider the question, and I'll put it up on the board. What is justice? And what does justice have to do with sales? This should be a 5-paragraph, so there will be a Dropbox on D2L for this, and you can have until next Tuesday, so I'm giving you class time to do this as well. It should be a 5-paragraph essay. Have one member of your group put it into the Dropbox and be prepared to defend your answer. We'll sort of talk about it today. Maybe as we talk through this and we engage in what I call the long debate, you might refine your answer and think about some other things. So it should be a 5-paragraph essay if I were writing it, and it gives you instructions in the Dropbox. Justice is X. It is highlighted by, in sales, a quid pro quo, for example. That's Latin for this, for that. And then in the body of the essay, you would say, the quid pro quo involves two parties coming together, a meeting of the minds in a contractual relationship where each party is satisfied, and this is an example of justice. You can't use my example, by the way. That would be unfair. It's not going to get you bonus points either. And that should lead to a conclusion. The way you should think about logic and critical thinking is that you start with a thesis statement, and this is your intro. Argue to substantive point, and then substantive example or point. There should be a connection here between these that we call a nexus, and then reach a logical conclusion. There should be a nexus here. This is the way academics write. It's a useful way of thinking about things. It's also effective in sales because we have something called the 3 exposure hypothesis. In marketing and sales, the idea is that you have to expose people to something 3 times before they get it or want to buy it. And so what do? In the 5-paragraph essay, you're going to tell me what you're going to tell me, you're going to tell me, and then you're going to do what? Tell me what you said. It's very effective, and there's something nice about that. Psychologically, there's a lot of evidence to support that this idea really works. So I'll let you do that. I'll go make copies of this for you so that you can see what I did on the rubric and what her score was. The only parts I marked off there, she got some small reductions in rephrasing the question for clarification. I didn't think she did that. And I'm not sure she really resolved at least one of the objections that he raised. She just sort of glossed over it. So I'll make that, so get in your groups and start working on this, and I will open the Dropbox and I'll show you where that's at with the instructions. So go ahead and start.
Now for 5, but he's saying it's for 175 years or something.
Okay, so
Yeah, George
if
basically.
you go to Justice and Sales Submit File, under Assessments, you'll see the, if you want to refresh your mind as to what I required, and there is a sample sort of form in terms of how you should structure your, isn't that nice that I've given you this nice sample of how it should be? Don't be creative. This is not a creative writing class. I know my mother says your writing is uninspired. Well, yes, that's the way academics write. It's not creative writing. I had a student once submit an essay exam that said I approached this problem eager as a squirrel in an oak forest when wham bam, the answer came to me like an elephant in a circus tumbling routine, and I wrote back, I leapt like a gazelle to the conclusion that you deserve a big fat F for making me read this drivel, and you need to take a creative writing course to get this out of your system. So That's where it's at. If you need to refresh your mind, you want to look at that sort of as a guide, a template. Thanks. Okay.
Worried about
All right, so let's start talking about your answers. Last time I started, I think, on that side of the room. You can refine these. I put on there a due date for the Dropbox, which is next Tuesday at 11:59, basically midnight, so you can try and win bonus points. Again, the advantage to you to doing this well is that the average exam score in this class on the first exam is about a 65, and so you're going to want bonus points. This is your opportunity to win that. Let's start with this group. Who did you elect as your fearless leader for today? Did you act as fearless leader last time? You'll be the fearless leader this time. All right, come on up and let's. We've only got like 2 points. So okay, that's fine. You can work on it some more. We just need to start fleshing this out. And getting used to presenting and talking in public. So what is justice?
So we kind of thought of justice as like a culturally different perception of what fairness is in that culture. And every culture has a different definition of fairness, whether it's like the law or if it's God. There has been tons of different ones throughout time.
So this concept of the law, the good Lord, culture. All right.
So in sales specifically, fairness is really important. And one example that we found of that is that when you go into a sales place like a car dealership or a cell phone store, the onus is on you, the customer, to know what you need to know to not get taken advantage of. If you don't know your stuff, the salesman is going to sell you stuff maybe that you don't necessarily need. They're going to upsell a lot, and you're going to spend more money. If you walk in knowing exactly what you want, exactly how things work, you're going to spend less money. And that duality is kind of inherently fair, because, like I said, it can go either way. By doing your research, you pay less. By not doing your research, you pay more, which to us is a very fair concept. That's pretty much all we have right now.
Okay. So I think you've got a good start here. You've got justice is equal to fairness. I think a lot of people think that fairness has something to do with it. One of the things that you talked about was doing your research. There is an old theory, you talked about the law. There's an old theory of the law called caveat emptor, which is the theory of buyer, let the buyer beware. And the idea was that if you're stupid enough to buy something and it goes badly, that's just on you. Is that appropriate in the modern era? Can you really evaluate, for example, the safety of a drug?
No. Well, yeah, they definitely do that.
But can you?
No.
So
I can
should you, I mean, I don't think you can do enough research as a consumer, can you, to evaluate the safety of the drug?
No.
Okay.
You
So-
can try.
You can try it, okay? And we have a lot of information at our fingertips that maybe you should, so one of my streams of research focuses on the efficacy of drugs. It turns out that a lot of them don't have a lot of efficacy. A lot of the drugs that they put out on the market, they don't have. So for example, I've started looking at, and you have to know something about statistics, so I guess you all should know something about statistics because you should have had it, right? You should have had business stats by now. One of the things that I looked at with regard to drugs is that if you get a large enough sample, and they're all convenient samples, all of the drug studies, they're not really scientific samples, in my opinion. In marketing, we can do real science because we can absolutely go out and do a completely random sample of people. And we do that in political marketing all the time. The Gallup poll releases, presidential approval, and that is an absolutely scientific poll. And it's totally random. Your chances of being selected are 1 out of 275 million people in the United States, and they poll about 2,000 people. They don't do that in medicine. We don't pull people out randomly and say, hey, we're going to give you this drug, whether you like it or not, and you're going to take it, and we're going to see if your head falls off. It's all convenient samples. It's people who agree, like, oh yeah, give me the drug, I'll try it, right? So they all raise their hand and they go in for these drug trials and they either have a placebo or the drug and they see whether or not your head falls off or it causes, vomiting or something like that. So you get a big enough sample and you have significance. So a lot of medical research is done with a very, very basic statistical technique that you'll probably have heard of called ANOVA, analysis of variance. And basically all ANOVA does is look at whether or not there are differences in populations. And then you can do more sophisticated techniques to see whether or not the difference is in one direction or another. But they do a lot of ANOVAs and they test these drugs, so they get a big enough sample, you get significance all the time, and if they don't, what they do is they just lower the confidence interval. And so the amount of significance between the placebo and the drug, in many instances, is really not that significant. And are you really, as are most consumers, sophisticated? I have a PhD, I know something about statistics, so I can start looking, and the reason I look at this is because it's part of my research stream. Can the average consumer do that?
No.
I don't think they can. Does the average consumer know? I mean, you all know what ANOVA is because you've had statistics, right? Actually, you've heard it, but do you really know what ANOVA is? I don't. Yeah, you talked about it in market research, but do you have like a, you know, if you used it, you could probably pick up on it, but does the average consumer know anything about that? I don't know. Okay. All right, very good. And we have a different fearless leader.
Yes.
I know you like to talk, so, you know, I'm glad you all.
I had to fight her for it
You had
today.
to arm wrestle
Yes.
to being the fearless
Yeah.
leader, benevolent dictator of your group.
Okay, so we briefly have discussed this, and we feel that justice is based off societal norms, and it's judgment that influence us to perceive what is right and wrong judicially. So basically, we feel that what I feel that justice is probably going to be different than what every single person in this room feels that justice is, and that it's influenced by, like, my peers, my family, my religion, things like that. And with justice in sales, we said that justice isn't always guaranteed in sales, and that some sellers will show justice when selling their products, while others will be unjust in order to get people to just buy their products without telling them about previous or current issues with the product.
Okay, all right. So you think it's individualistic?
Yes.
You think it's based on your experiences? That's gonna be a really hard position to maintain, isn't it? If we say that justice is just whatever I feel, I don't like students who fall asleep in my class, so should I be able to take out my 350? I have a concealed carry permit. Should I be able to take out my 357 Magnum and smite them?
No.
That's justice. Let me tell you, the rest of you won't fall asleep. It'll just take one.
It's facts.
You know, I will inflict knowledge on the rest of you after that, you know, after that one. Is that justice?
Maybe not. I don't think we were thinking that extreme, maybe, but like maybe I feel that it's just that I sold you a car.
Okay, so I'll just pimp slap you.
Yeah, maybe that.
Yeah. That was really good.
I'll just walk up, you know,
What a phrase.
bam.
What a phrase.
Is that justice?
I'm with it. Yeah, I'm with it. I'm with it.
Yes? You're shaking your head?
It depends how hard you slap it.
Yeah, I think it's on how you say it.
Okay, all right.
Or you can just shoot him in the leg. Not like really funny.
Well, of course, most people are gonna take the slap over being shot, but I think most people would say, yeah, no, don't do that. Like that, like I'm a human. Don't
bring whipped
molest me.
cream and
Don't,
just,
you know, don't
Right.
don't do that. I mean, okay. So you think it's not guaranteed? I will agree with that. I will agree that it is not necessarily guaranteed. Life is not fair.
Right.
In Republic, Socrates is forced to deal with this idea that his idea of fairness, his idea of justice, is never going to come into fruition. He says that's beside the point. You don't need the philosopher to tell you what's actually going on out there. You need the philosopher to tell you what's the best that we can become. Now, is that too much to ask in sales, do you think?
Maybe.
Okay. Maybe? Okay, did you have an example?
Some of the examples that we came up with, where we talked about Ponzi schemes and where people have been scammed, and we
Okay.
talked about Hurricane Harvey. This was one that we really talked about a lot. With car sales, like selling the cars that had been damaged by water and only fixing them minimally to where they could be resold.
Okay,
And we also talked about McDonald's and their advertising and like the colors that they use that like entice your hunger, and how your Big Mac never looks exactly as good as the Big
Okay.
Mac that you actually really get.
that's, okay, is that fair?
To me, I don't think that's fair, but to McDonald's, I think that they think that's fair.
Is it possible to come up with a actually perfect, is it, possible to come up with a Big Mac that looks like it should look exactly every
Not
single
with the
time?
money and the time.
Or is that false advertising? You don't think it's false advertising?
Yeah, I think it's false.
If they didn't have some greasy, zit-faced kid shoving the hamburger, like stomping on my food,
Wouldn't you want to show your product in the idea of the machine?
okay? And shouldn't we just sort of, I guess as consumers now, all of us have gone to McDonald's and realized that it does not look like that, right? Like that.
Yeah, the burger.
I mean, if you get a Big Mac, you have to pay like $25.
But you're not, that's not what you're there for.
Yeah,
And you
so-
make
You just have
okay. I guess maybe some of it is expectation, all right? Well, I'm about out of time, so we got 2 groups. We'll finish talking with you all the next time, and you can have until Tuesday at midnight to complete the assignment. We'll talk some more when I get back.